Hello, and a massive welcome to this explainer. We're jumping straight into Module 3 of the TMF Specialist course today. Now, if you work in clinical research, you already know the trial master file, the TMF, isn't just some static filing cabinet sitting in a corner. Far from it. It's a living, breathing entity. It intrinsically mirrors the physical progress of the clinical trial itself. It grows, it shifts, and it matures exactly as your study does. So by the end of our chat today, you're going to be able to name the unique document sets for each phase, perfectly maintain your filing currency, and properly plan for archive retention. We're going to look at how to manage that entire lifespan, from the very first document right through to its final, decades-long hibernation. Everything we're discussing today revolves around this one core idea. The TMF moves through phases that mirror the trial: startup, conduct, closeout, and archive. And the big overarching theme across all of these phases? Proactive discipline. You see, the actions and habits you build in one phase inevitably ripple right into the next. A solid startup makes for a remarkably smooth conduct phase, and rigorous daily conduct is frankly the only way you'll survive the crushing pressure of closeout. Our roadmap for today is pretty straightforward. We'll be walking through 1. The startup phase, 2. The conduct phase, 3. The closeout phase, and finally 4. Archive and retention. Okay, let's dive right into this with Phase 1, Startup. This is where the stakes for the entire trial are established. If you get this right, the trial has a rock-solid bedrock. Get it wrong? Well, you'll be firefighting gaps for years to come. The absolute golden number here is 18. Before you can even think about screening a patient, first patient in, you're strictly required to gather 18 plus essential documents per site. We're talking about foundational items like the signed protocol, the investigator's brochure, financial disclosures, and investigators' CVs. Until a site has every single one of these pretrial documents filed and verified, they absolutely cannot proceed. No exceptions. To manage this without missing a single detail, successful TMF specialists enforce 6 activation gates. Think of these gates as crucial checkpoints that prevent foundational cracks, running from submission ready at gate 1 all the way to first patient in at gate 6. To put that into perspective, there's a brilliant real-world example of a specialist who successfully activated 75 sites. By verifying the document criteria at every single gate for every single site, they achieved 0 gate violations across the entire trial. Skipping a gate because you're under pressure is a guaranteed audit finding, so you really want to make these checkpoints your best friends. During the startup phase, you're also building the electronic system itself. Your eTMF setup has got to be driven by senior specialists right at study start, because trying to retrofit a messy TMF later is an absolute nightmare. This means configuring zones, ensuring accurate metadata, and provisioning correct role access. Plus, translation pipelines and country-specific requirements multiply your documentation like you wouldn't believe. A 12-country trial with 9 languages doesn't just mean one standard informed consent form. Oh no, it means 18 different language-specific ICF records to track, along with country-specific labels and insurance. It's a massive undertaking. Moving right along to Phase 2, Conduct. As your sites activate and patients actually begin screening, the scale of the trial shifts dramatically into a relentless, high-volume operation. Because of that volume, your ultimate weapon here is filing currency. This is the standard operating procedure requiring documents to be filed within 5 days of receipt to prevent backlogs. It's the daily discipline that keeps your TMF healthy. Imagine you're tracking a Phase 3 trial in its second year. You might see well over 1,000 documents filed in that year alone. A top-tier specialist will maintain a 96% filing currency metric, jumping in immediately at the first sign of a temporary backlog to right the ship. Now, this daily discipline becomes absolutely critical when a substantial amendment hits. It's like a domino effect. A single protocol update doesn't just sit quietly in one folder. It cascades across multiple zones in your eTMF. Let's say a version 3.0 protocol lands in Zone 02. Well, that immediately triggers IRB approvals across all countries in Zone 04. That then demands fresh training records in Zone 05, patient reconsents in Zone 09, and revised electronic case report forms in Zone 11. You have to meticulously track this entire amendment cascade to ensure every linked document is fully updated. Alongside those amendments, you're dealing with the critical volume of safety and monitoring records. Serious Adverse Event Reports, or SAEs, must be filed immediately upon receipt to ensure absolute timeliness and traceability. Meanwhile, clinical research associates are out there visiting sites and generating hundreds of visit reports. These reports form the core evidence of your trial conduct, so they have to be filed within strict service level agreements, typically 14 days. And of course, any CAPAs need to be appropriately filed in Zone 12. And that brings us to the climax, Phase 3, closeout. Eventually, the final patient completes their final visit. This high-pressure convergence truly tests all that discipline you maintained during the conduct phase. Closeout isn't just a single event. It is an unstoppable cascade of final reports and site closeouts. It all kicks off with month 36, LPLV, last patient, last visit. That LPLV triggers database lock around month 38. That then allows for the final clinical study report, the CSR, and investigational product reconciliation by month 42. All of this leads right into the final sponsor audit at month 44, and finally, the archive transition at month 46. You'll notice the mindsets between these two phases are completely different. The conduct phase was all about managing relentless, high volume, think 1,000+ documents a year, with that daily 5-day filing discipline and real-time health metrics. But the closeout phase? That's incredibly high stakes. You're dealing with final CSRs and audit certificates under the zero-error pressure of 100% reconciliation. Everything has to be absolutely perfect for that sponsor closeout audit. And speaking of that audit, it really is the ultimate test before you can close the book. Quality assurance will audit the TMF, performing a massive completeness check against the expected document set and doing thorough gap verification. Crucially, any findings or gaps they identify must be fully resolved. They'll review your CAPA register, and you have to confirm archive readiness before the TMF is legally allowed to transition into its final phase. Which leads us to the final resolution, Phase 4, Archive and Retention. Once that audit is clean, the active trial is over, but it must still be defended. The TMF enters long-term hibernation, and when we say long-term, we really mean it. There is a massive 25-year retention requirement you need to be aware of. Under the EU Clinical Trials Regulation, Article 57, a trial's master file must be retained for at least 25 years from the trial's end. Just think about that. This requires incredibly robust planning. You are effectively designing an archive that might outlast your own career. Managing this means handling two very different worlds. While most modern archives are electronic-only TMFs, demanding durable digital storage and essential format migrations, many older trials still have significant legacy paper components. These physical archives require secure, climate-controlled storage. But honestly, whether you're dealing with physical or electronic archives, both demand strict access logs and robust preservation strategies to survive for decades. For the electronic side, there's a huge risk you've got to mitigate: digital degradation. Proprietary file formats degrade and become obsolete over time. If an inspector can't open your archive 20 years down the line, that is a massive compliance failure. To prevent this, you've got to rely on a durable standard like PDF/A. More importantly, you must execute format migrations every 5 to 10 years and carefully verify the post-migration readability each and every time. Now, what's really interesting is how this plays out in real life. Let's do a quick scenario check to test everything we've talked about. You hit LPLV at month 36. You review the TMF and discover a massive 400-document backlog from the past 3 months. The sponsor expected 100% filing currency. So as a TMF specialist, what's the correct action here? Do you try to hide it? Do you just skip it and archive as is? Or do you backdate the filings? The answer is firm and uncompromising. The only correct action is to brief the sponsor immediately, build a robust clearance plan, clear that backlog before the audit, and CAPA the SOP gap that allowed it to accumulate in the first place. You must acknowledge and plan. Backdating your filings is outright fraud, and hiding the backlog is serious misconduct. Discipline and transparency really are your only true safeguards. Which brings us to our final thought today. The life cycle of a trial master file is deeply interconnected. A smooth closeout is really just the reward for years of daily, rigorous filing discipline during the conduct phase. So, I'll leave you with this question to reflect on. Are the daily habits you are building today preparing your TMF for a flawless closeout, or are they setting you up for a crushing backlog? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I can't wait to explore more fascinating topics with you next time.